Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is made by fans for fans, and where the content is free. It is a bonus European pod tonight for these guys. We are looking at the Europa League tie tomorrow against Antwerp in Belgium. It's not just the pod that we have here at Gersnet. We have the forums, articles, social media, history archive on the website. So get yourself on that. If this is the first time watching the pod or listening to the pod, then we would ask you to subscribe and put the word out there in social media that we're there. We're live tonight. It is the Wednesday night before the game in Belgium, but the pod will be available to stream or download both visually and audibly on Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher and Spotify. So on to my guest introductions. Now, first and foremost, I'll bring in Alex. How are you, Alex? You're the regular guy here. I'll bring you in first.
I'm absolutely fine, thanks, Colin. Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed that you've brought on a man all the way from Belgium just to prove that I'm still the worst English speaker in the whole of Gersnet. You know what I mean?
See, another thing as well, he's bringing a bit of hair to the proceedings because we're a bit short on that, you know what I mean? So it's something that the show is needing tonight. Yeah, we do. We have a special guest tonight from Belgium who's going to tell us all about Antwerp, and that's Michiel De Wolf. How are you, Michiel?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. What paper is it you write for over there?
Sorry?
What newspaper is it you write for?
Voetbalprimeur. It's Belgium and Dutch website.
Oh, right. Okay, that's great. And we've got you on obviously because Rangers are playing Antwerp tomorrow, and hopefully you can give us some insight to our opponents. So I'll come to you first because I know you're quite busy tonight and you're looking to sort of shoot off and do other things. So I thought I'd run a few things past you. First things, before we go into the sort of main questions about tomorrow, I thought I'd get a wee insight to how Rangers are viewed over in Belgium at the moment, especially with sort of Steven Gerrard being there. Is Gerrard and Rangers attracting a lot of press over there, a lot of attention?
Well, with Steven Gerrard, you have a very famous coach, of course. He's definitely the most famous person at the club in Belgium. But you also have Hagi and Kemar Roof, who played in Belgium. Hagi wasn't very impressive in Belgium, but we're still very curious to see how he's doing it in Scotland. And Kemar Roof played for Anderlecht, the biggest team in Belgium, of course. And so we follow the performances of those players, but also not too much, of course, because it's Scotland in Belgium doesn't get too much attention. But if they score a hat-trick or 2 goals, we see it.
What about if they score a goal for the halfway line? How does that go down over there?
Well, we all saw that one too.
Right.
He never did that in Belgium.
No, he saved that for us. That was a great night, I must admit. So in terms of Antwerp, the recent form going into this game, how have they been playing? You know, what's their sort of form? Are they a team in form, and should Rangers be wary of them tomorrow night?
Well, they changed their coach in January because the previous coach, Ivan Leko, he went to China because he could earn 10 times more. And now the team is led by Frank Verkouteren, which is a famous coach in Belgium. And it did make some differences at the team. The team used to play very attractive football, attacking football, but now with the new coach, they're more defensive oriented. They're not very exciting to watch. They don't create many chances, but they do get points. It's a very realistic type of football. I think you can compare it a little bit with how Jose Mourinho plays at Tottenham. So not very exciting to watch, but it gets the job done. They played against Bruges in the Cup last week. They lost 3-1, but Bruges is by far the best team in Belgium at this moment, so it's not a shame. And they drew against Standard Liège last weekend in the competition, 1-1. And the Rangers won against Standard Liège, if I'm not mistaken, earlier this year.
Right. So,
in the season.
Yeah, it's I saw Steven Gerrard in his press conference today, I think it was today, saying that they tend to play with a back five, and that sort of fits in with what you're saying there. So you're saying they're going to be a difficult team to break down?
Yeah, I would not expect to. The Rangers probably will have some difficulties creating many chances. So I think it's very important to be very clinical in front of the goal because they don't give away much. Yeah, for sure. But the issue is they have quite some injuries, especially in the attacking part of the field. So we expect in Belgium that they will play even more defensively the first leg, so they can try to finish the job in the second leg.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to come on to. Actually, the Scottish media here are reporting that the Antwerp are a bit depleted at the moment, a few injuries. Could you give us a wee bit of details, the players that are injured and who are the key players that are still in the squad and who Rangers should be looking out for tomorrow night?
Well, the injury list is quite big, actually. There are 5-6 injuries. The most important player that is injured is Mbokani, which is the main striker. He played for Norwich in the past too. He's one of the best strikers in Belgium too, although he's 34. He's been injured for 6 weeks and he's definitely not going to play tomorrow. He's not fit. Then the goalkeeper is also injured, the first goalkeeper. He will be replaced by the second goalkeeper, who is a little bit not very reliable. Sometimes he plays very well, other times he makes awful mistakes. And then you have some other squad players that will not be fit, but the goalkeeper and the striker are definitely the most important players that are missing. But there's also the case of Lamkelzee, also a striker, maybe the most talented player on the team, but he will be suspended in Europe for the first leg. So he will not be playing.
And in terms of these injuries and suspensions, will we expect to see all of them, or if not most of them, in the return leg at Ibrox?
Lamkelzee will be back for the return leg. The other players will probably still be injured.
Right, okay. And finally, as I said, you're quite busy, so we'll let you go. But before you go, I would be interested to hear your predictions for tomorrow night and for the tie overall. I mean, who do you think will win tomorrow, and who you think will progress through the tie?
I think it's a very balanced matchup. I think the two teams are, in terms of quality, almost equal to each other. Maybe a slight advantage for the Rangers because they have no injuries. The squad is all healthy and well. So I expect the first game to be a very close game. Not many chances. I think Antwerp will play very defensive, and they will definitely be happy with a 0-0 or a 1-0 win, as long as they don't concede, and then try to finish the job in Scotland. So I think maybe a 0-0 in Antwerp, and then if Antwerp gets lucky, maybe a 1-0 win in Scotland. But it can really go either way. It's very close.
Okay, so you're tipping Antwerp to go through?
I have to. As a Belgian, I have to stay loyal to my country.
That's fair enough. Michiel, thanks very much for joining us. It's been great to have you. You know, we don't get many guests on this show, so it was great to have you, and thanks for your insight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thursday.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
What about that, Alex? That's someone new in the show. We don't normally get that. You know what I mean? People, guests.
I know. I mean, it's bad when you've got to go all the way to Belgium, though, Colin.
I know. That's and it's even worse when he's got even better internet than we've got here. You know what I mean?
I know, and English.
Right. Anyway, before I progress any further, Alex, I need to do my usual bit on the Rangers pick. So if any of you guys out there watching fancy the opportunity of winning a share of £1,000, then sign up to play Rangers Picks, the new Rangers Pick'em game, which is available for every Rangers match. The more fans that play, the more money the club receives. So you know, if you want to do it, there is the upside of that. To play, please visit www.rangerspicks.com. Complete the series of questions about the Rangers game. And if you get enough of those right, then you'll get a share of £1,000 prize money. You must be over 18 to play. Terms and conditions apply as always. And remember, guys, when it comes to these things, please play responsibly. And that's me, Alex. That's my contractual obligations done and dusted. We can now talk about the game. But before we do it, how are you doing? I never really had a chance to, because we had guests. You know, couldn't really get in a small chat.
I'm absolutely fine, Colin. I've just been realising that I went from a dinner once to Devonshire Gardens. I went for my brunch there as well, which is where Jones and Edmondson were partying. And when I'm doing my wee token gesture, walking around the West End of Glasgow, wee token gesture to fitness every day, I cut up that Hayburn lane. So I'm starting to think I just go about with a kind of megaphone going, is any Rangers players partying? Any of these hissies here? Try and daze off, ever, an old fire warden in the Second World War or something. I'm fine, mate. How's yourself, sir?
Doing away. Aye, the usual. I'm glad the snow's away because it was restricting your ability to get out. I mean, I don't know what it was like where you are, but it was a good sort of foot deep where I am. Yes. You know what I mean? But it like disappeared overnight. I mean, literally overnight, it just sort of disappeared. So that's good. On to the game tomorrow night, back in the Europa League. That we've not had any sort of Europa League action since December. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think it provides a sort of welcome distraction for the domestic stuff. And I also think we played better domestically when we were playing in the Europa League. We just seem to have a rhythm and a momentum behind us when we're in the Europa League. I think that's tailed off a little bit since these games have disappeared. So I'm hoping that picks us up again. On tomorrow night, it's a second successive season that Steven Gerrard's got us out the group stages. He's negotiated us out those group stages. I mean, his record in Europe is actually, with Rangers, it's quite incredible. What he's achieved in such a small sort of space of time. I mean, I slightly disagree with Michiel. I think Rangers would go into this sort of slight favourites. And if we get through it, that's us into the last 16. And then, depending on the draw, you don't know where you're going to end up. You might end up going fairly decently, quite well into the competition. The European stuff, is that a sign that, I think Steven Gerrard deserves a huge amount of praise for this. It's a real sign of how far he's taken the club when you consider, Pedro standing on the hedge to the second season and the sort of the knockout stages of the Europa League. It really is a testament to how far Steven Gerrard and his staff have brought us.
Yeah, I always remember, might sound like I'm going off topic here, but I remember when we lost 5-1 at Parkhead in, I think it's 1998, October-ish 1998. And it was one of those days that the kind of 4-goal swings in Old Firm games weren't as common then as they became. And I thought, we'll never go over this. This is just, even if we win the league this season, there's nothing we can do to get over this. We then went to Parkhead and the second visit that season, and we actually won the title there, 3-0. And you were like, right, never say never. That was the previous game was wiped out. And I feel with Europe, probably the lowest I've ever been as a Rangers supporter, when on-field result was that night in Luxembourg under Pedro. And I thought, this is something we'll take years, because it'll be years before we even back in the group stages. Just looking at it sensibly, where we're coming from. So what Gerrard's done to have us straight in the group stages the following season and have us in the group stages 3 seasons in the trot, it's actually got to the point where we're getting used to it. It's an incredible achievement. And I know Gerrard gets a bit of a slating for not winning, a domestic trophy. We're looking at the cups in his time here. But for me, Europe more than makes up for that. It's the way he's grabbed the club by the hair. He's got his, even the first season, beating Rapid Vienna at home, drawn away to Villarreal, drawn at home with 10 men, and just the consistently great results against massive clubs. It's like he's saying to everybody, this is the standard. You have no excuse. He's saying to every player within the squad, this is what you can do. So when you're launching a bid to win the Scottish title, when you've been beating Feyenoord and Porto, it makes it so much more believable for the players, and it makes it so much more believable for the fans. And I'm loving every minute of it, mate. I'm loving it. Yeah,
I mean that Rapid Vienna night. I mean that was probably the first time that my son's been at a game where I could actually say, you support a big club, son, and this used to be the norm. You know what I mean? And that was a special night. I must admit, I really enjoyed that. In terms of tomorrow, in terms of injuries and all that kind of a thing, Alfie and Roof back in the squad. Big bonus. I think we've kind of missed them of late. Don't get me wrong, I like Big Eaton. I think, there's maybe a player in the making there, but maybe not quite at the level required yet. So a big boost. I would imagine they would go with Alfie because, obviously Roof's he's still got 1 game domestically in terms of suspension to go. So I think you would imagine Alfie will get a run out tomorrow to get minutes in the legs and get him fresh for Sunday.
Yeah, and I think Eaton didn't really get a chance to get back properly from his injury with the suspension and what have you, and then going to Hamilton, not worth risking him on the plastic pitch for more than the wee cameo that he made at the end. So I think Ruth. Big Eaton is a work in progress, as you say, but tomorrow it's got to be Alfredo for me. He's not been banging the goals in the way we want him to this season, but he's not had to. The whole team's been banging the goals in. Scott Arfield is like a one man kind of alleviating the weight of that for Alfie. He's been fantastic this season with some really crucial goals in Europe. I think the way he breaks the line, especially if we're up against a kind of physical, I think they play with a back. They've always got three centre halves, I think, Royal Antwerp. So if you look at it like a really good version of Derek McInnes's Aberdeen, and we know how Alfie can ragdoll them through the years, we're looking at him doing that tomorrow night. And I think the only danger for us tomorrow is if we take it, if we think because of the teams that we have played, even in this season's campaign, Galatasaray, Benfica, these are all bigger, even Standard Liège are bigger names than Royal Antwerp. But they're a cracking old club. They're a really famous old club in Belgium. I think the only danger would be if we took our eye off the ball and thought, as we're all doing, who are we going to get in the next round?
Yeah.
From what Stevie G was saying today, the players have got a sparkle in their eye. They're not thinking that way. I think it's been long enough they've been out of Europe. I think they're starting to see the title, the domestic title, as a kind of numbers game. It's a bit of I think Ross was alluding to this in Sunday's pod. It's, we're not trying to stop the 10. There wasn't a 9. We're 18 points clear. We're 15 points clear. There's 4 wins to go. And I think it's been reflected in the play. The team look like they're just trying to go through a kind of process. I think Europe will spark, will liven them up again. And I think this team likes playing in Europe, this Rangers team. So I'm looking forward to it, mate.
Yeah, that's all, Matt. I think I'm like you. I think it kind of, they do. It's maybe almost a sense that it's a free hit in Europe. You know what I mean? There's not the same level of expectation, so the pressure's off a wee bit, and I think the players maybe express themselves a wee bit better than they do domestically. Certainly recently, and that's the sort of point I'm coming on to. Our form in Europa League has been outstanding this season. Undefeated. Won the group against a team. Benfica. I mean, their budget, makes our budget look like small beer, really. So to win that group was really impressive. However, there is this talk. I mean, I think it's exaggerated a little bit. There is this talk that the form has dipped a little bit. And we're maybe not battering teams anymore. But I mean, the game on Saturday there against Kilmarnock. I mean, I was reading a match report on the Sunday. Douglas Alexander on the Sunday Times. And he was making it out, Rangers huffed and puffed and they toiled. And I thought, did they really? I could count 5, 6 clear-cut chances that we better finishing. We would have won the game. We could have won that game comfortably. It was just poor finishing. So I think it is exaggerated a little bit. That said, I also feel that if we do want to get through this round and we do want to go as far in the competition as we can, the performances do need to pick up a little bit.
I think for the players as well. I think there comes a point where the players needs. I know we beat Ross County 5-0 in that game, but I think they need to know that every game isn't going to be a grind. I'm not going to say we're going to go out and bang in 4 or 5 goals tomorrow night, but we need that soon. We've got Dundee United coming up. I think the players need a wee psychological break, knowing that they can cut loose. But at the same time, when you haven't won a title for 10 years and when it means as much to us as this one does, I don't care how many players you have, the greatest players in the world, that's a pressure you're going to feel. And I feel that we made a pact with the devil first game of the season when we beat Aberdeen 1-0 up at Pittodrie, and the whole second half, we were never really under any pressure, but we were all, as Rangers supporters, watching that game and just feeling a second goal would ease our nerves. And we were a bit nervous. It gets to the end of the game, we're 1-1-0, and we're all saying we would take that. It was a bit of a grind, it was hard on the nerves, but we'd take that every time. And I think since January, it's felt like that's, and a lot of December as well, it's felt like it's like that every time. Yeah. We're just, and as you say, I think Saturday was a case in point. It's only when the final whistle goes, you look back, you realise, Kilmarnock haven't had a shot on goal. They've no tested McGregor at all. No. We're winning games easily in football terms, but I think we could do with, just for our own sake, going forward, for the players' sake, they need a wee 3 or 4-0 under their belt, just so we can keep it going.
Yeah, I must admit, on Saturday, I mean, I was seeing a bit of stuff on Twitter and thought, getting a wee bit stressed out. I didn't feel it on Saturday. I'm quite bad with the nerves, especially at this stage when we're so close to it. But I felt quite comfortable on Sunday. Don't get me wrong, wee squeaky bum moment with the penalty claim. But other than that, I just didn't feel Kilmarnock really offered anything. The most nervous I've been this season was that Motherwell game at Ibrox when they were 1-0 up and we were struggling to get the equaliser. That was brutal. That was horrific. In terms of I said earlier on, the injury situation was pretty good. Rumours that James Tavernier was going to miss tomorrow. That's turned out to be fake news. As you said, Stephen Gerrard sort of suggested today in his press conference that the players, had a real twinkle in their eyes, and he felt that they were ready to put in a performance. And as we're sort of looking at there, it would, I think, a good performance tomorrow. And I wouldn't discount a victory over there because we've went to more difficult places. I'm not being dismissive of Antwerp at all. They're a good side. As Michiel said there, he reckons the two teams are fairly neck and neck. But we went to tougher places and got a result. So if this team plays to its potential, we could go there and get a win. I just think it would give us that boost, that sort of leap forward to 4 games to go to win the title. As you say, it looks like it's a bit of a huff and puff. I think a win tomorrow would springboard us a wee bit, would give us that platform to go on.
Absolutely. I think you look back to certain games in our European kind of odyssey under Gerrard. We beat this season alone when we went to Tilburg and we beat Willem II, just kind of on the border with Belgium. We beat them 4-0. That's a performance that's actually been underrated because of what we did subsequently. The games against Benfica were epic. The win over Galatasaray, even the next qualifier was amazing. But to go over there and win 4-0, and then, by the end of that game, Alan McGregor was pulling off like a treble save, and just to keep them from scoring a single goal. The tie was over. Yeah. And they only got the ball in the net by fouling them at one point. It was from what looked like a potential banana skin, a straightforward match. It looked like we were kind of equal pegging. We just blew them away. And we then, on the Sunday, turned up at Fir Park, and you're thinking, is there going to be a European hangover? And we battered them 5-1. Yeah. It was like I said, and to be fair, give it some context, Motherwell, they'd been away in Europe, and they'd get leathered in Israel. They were practically in the Middle East, so they'd come back for a long trip, But I remember, go back to that night against Rapid Vienna in Gerrard's first season, an epic night at Ibrox. As you say, it was the place felt as if it was being lit up again. It was like we were getting the old Ibrox back. It was badly needed. It was an injection of pre-2012, that we all really needed in our bones. And the following Sunday, we had Hearts the following Sunday at Ibrox, and we were 3-0 up in half an hour. And I think Alfie kind of back-heeled one in the mid-air while kind of pirouetting. It was just it was like an ongoing celebration. Yeah. We'd showed what we're all about on Thursday night, and the guys, they just took that into the following game, and they blew Hearts away before Hearts had even kind of got on the park. So that can happen. You can have games where we kind of the 2-0 win over Ross County this season at Ibrox. It was a bit of a drag. That came after a European away game. We've had setbacks at Fir Park again. In Gerrard's first season, I think we played, was it the home game against Ufa? We then had the 3 each at Fir Park that Motherwell equalised in the last minute. So there has been dips in performance after European games. But see, to be honest, mate, I think we're at the stage now, if there's no Scottish Cup, there's holes in the calendar, there's holes in the fixture calendar. When we were beating Hamilton 1-0 the other week and looking like we might still concede an equaliser, my only concern was we weren't going to beat Brendan Rodgers' 2016-2017 record. Yeah. If we let Hamilton. I've actually got past the point of worrying about us winning the title, COVID-related matters aside. Yeah. And I think for us to stay unbeaten, we actually need Europe as a kind of focus. I think we need something to keep us going, lest we end up going the same way like Warburton's Rangers did, at the end of 2015-16, where we didn't really have a competitive match because we won the title so early. How Hibs were still playing the playoffs, So it works in all sorts of ways, but mostly it's just prestige for the club. It's where we should be, and it just gets everybody really excited and positive.
On to the less positive stuff, Alex. You know, Stephen Gerrard spoke today about the COVID incident, you know, regarding players that had broken the protocols. The players were officially named today. Obviously, there was a lot of stuff doing the rounds on social media. I think, you know, most of us had an idea of the players involved, but they've been officially revealed as Bongani Zungu, Nathan Patterson, Calvin Bassey, Dapo Mebude, and Brian Kinnear. Now, I mean, it's difficult to know where to start with this. You know, I mean, I know David and Ross and John sort of covered it a little bit on Sunday night because it was breaking news just before they came live on air. But I mean, it's frustrating at the best of times. I think, you know, it's really disappointing at the best of times. However, when you consider what happened with Jordan Jones and George Edmondson, I mean, you consider all the players. I mean, it seems impossible to me that Stephen Gerrard hasn't got the players down and sat them down at that point and went, look, you need to toe the line here on this because, you know, it can damage the club, it can damage your, you know, chances of winning the title and all that kind of a thing. So, I mean, I know a couple of them are just young boys and I get that, but it's still really disappointing, mainly because of the previous incident. You know, they must have seen the punishment that was dished out to them. 7-game ban, and both of them aren't at the club anymore, and I don't expect they'll come back from their loan deals. You know, I think they'll be permanently moved on. For these boys to then, especially somebody like Zungu, who's like 26, something like that, you know,
28,
28.
Aye,
you know what I mean? Really disappointing, really disappointing. And I would put it this way: I wouldn't want to be. In fact, I would love to be a fly in the wall when Stephen Gerrard gets to sit down with them in a couple of weeks' time.
I know my first thought when this story broke, when it was at the rumour stage on Sunday, was just a fear for the mental health of the young players. I know there's a lot of jealousy out there, just basic jealousy of professional footballers, like middle-aged guys like me, who can remember what it's like to be fit and, you know, able to play 10 games a week and go out 10 nights a week. It was, but underneath that, you're just thinking, if this has any kind of effect on our league title challenge, if this results in a points deduction or whatever, I would hate to be they boys. I really would, because the Rangers support will turn on them apart from anything else in a horrible way. I don't think it will come to that. The precedent just isn't there. But there's actually a material effect for this. I mean, Patterson. I think when Zungu, for me, you've got to think, when you see the way he's been playing and the chances he's got, it looks like. You should never attribute kind of motivation to somebody when you don't actually know, but it seems to me it's all part of kind of maybe a homesickness. You know, he's been in France, he's from South Africa, you know, he's maybe not settling in. That's reflected in his performances, and this has maybe led to this kind of action. He's the senior player here. He just shouldn't be getting involved, you know, in this kind of thing at all. And even if the club aren't pointing it out to them on a daily basis, which they should be. You know, these boys are on social media all the time. They watch the news, they watch the telly. They know what the penalties are. They know what the potential cost is. They know that they're being watched all the time. And any player at any club in Scotland should be watching their back. I'm not 100% with this whole kind of blaming, you know, putting it all on Scottish football, putting it all on footballers. You know, we're all suffering under lockdown. I think footballers are getting used as a kind of political weapon. When they're actually doing a lot to kind of keep us all sane by going out and basically risking their life, you know, going out and playing and going out risking catching COVID. But they should know. There's no way they can't know that this is a massive season for Rangers. This is like arguably the biggest season in our history. And to do anything that would put that in jeopardy is it's insanity. And I just can't see any of them being back at the club.
It gets worse when you consider the age and the society we live in, you know, and everybody's got mobile phones and we're all filming one another. No, it seems almost impossible that anyone who's got any sort of celebrity about them wouldn't be able to do anything without someone, you know, catching it on a phone, you know what I mean, or camera and stuff like that. It just seems incredible. I mean, Stephen Gerrard said today that he felt personally let down, and I think that was quite strong terms and strong words to use. And it says to me that, there's little or no hope of any of these players, coming back from this. And I suppose the one that we're all feeling the worst about is the boy Patterson. He's had a lot of positive press quite recently. There was a lot of stuff coming out about him. He was getting a bit of game time. He was saying how great Tavernier was with him and supporting him. And, there was a feeling at one point, I think we spoke about it on here, that the succession planning for the right back position might already be in place. We might have someone who's good enough just to come in when Tav goes. And you see him potentially and probably, piss that up against the wall is sad to see.
Well, he is first understudy as well. There's a material effect potentially here for us, not just in terms of points deductions, but on the park. I mean, luckily James Tavernier seems to be made of Teflon. He just doesn't get injured. Yeah. He doesn't stop playing. And even if Nathan Patterson came in, we discussed this last time we were talking about Nathan Patterson on one of the preview pods. He's never going to be able to do the same job straight away as Tav, But if Tav, picks up an injury tomorrow night or, on Saturday or Sunday against Dundee United, we've now got nobody. We're now going to have to really majorly change about the team. Yeah. To get somebody in to cover them. So it's not just the kind of political aspect and the potential for points deductions, etc. It does actually affect the squad. It is weakening the squad, in a kind of concrete way. But that's why I always have this kind of caveat in the back of my mind. I don't want to go too hard on the boys, but and Stevie G, you're quite right. He's quite pointed. He's very good. Stevie G, as we've said before, and how he gets his message across without ranting and raving like some managers. But I'm wondering what's going on. They're saying they're in negotiations with the SFA and the Scottish government. They're having talks, and I'm just wondering if Gerrard and Rangers are just basically saying, look, these boys are all gone. They're away. That's it. And that way we get no kind of flack from the governing bodies. And I think that will be the case, and I think it's a real shame for them personally. But 55 is everything, mate.
Well, it's not what has to be considered here as the potential of what could have happened. Aye. If those guys had, especially the boys that train with the first team squad, they'd came back into the squad and then it had been revealed that they'd been at the party, then, basically you're losing your entire squad. They've all got to isolate. We've got to send out, seriously weakened teams over the next 3 or 4 games. All of a sudden you could find yourself in a far sort of tighter title race than we're currently enjoying. So, it's fairly unforgivable. But as you said, there's been these discussions. I think Rangers have handled this quite well. The announcement came out on Sunday. We're aware of it. We're saying nothing else just now. Then Stevie G's came out today, made his statement. These are the 5 boys involved, and we'll handle it internally. And we're having discussions with the appropriate bodies. Now it seems fairly proactive, rather than letting other bodies dictate. We're going to them saying, right, okay, as you say, we're going to the Scottish Government, we're going to the SFA, and we're saying, look, this is what we're doing. And I think you're right. I think these boys might be part of a negotiation in terms of, they've broke the rules, so we're going to move them on, and that's the end of it. But it's good to see Rangers almost control the situation, control the narrative, and I don't think that's something we would have done maybe 2-3 years ago. I think this thing would have blown up more than it actually has.
Aye. No, and I think it's one of the few, like alluding to, it's one of the few situations in our history where you're glad the players have been caught by the police. Because if they're doing that, and it's a terrible thing to say, and this is why they're gone really from Rangers, because you can't trust them. If they're partying like that in the first place, amid all the publicity about COVID, amid all the warnings they've undoubtedly had at Ibrox, you don't know if they're going to then come in the Monday morning and go to training and not say anything if they hadn't been caught by the police, basically, in both instances. And then we're looking at the whole squad getting into quarantine, having to self-isolate for a couple of weeks. And that's, I don't know if that affects us in Europe. You can see us out of Europe. You can see us out of the, we've got enough in the bag in the league, but it can end up costing us points, the way it costs Celtic points, basically, when they come back from Dubai. And cost us points on the field as opposed to any retrospective punishment. But yeah, I think it's over. I just wouldn't trust the pressure everybody is under just now, government, football authorities. I'm just hoping Rangers aren't trusting the SFA and the Scottish government too much, I think we should continue to be proactive about it. I think we should be making a slightly more severe statement, about what's happening to these guys, just so it's all out there in the open, because I wouldn't trust the way things are going just now. Everything's a reaction. Policies, in the SFA and in the Scottish Government is a reaction to public pressure.
Yeah.
And we've seen how that's worked in the past. So I would like Rangers to keep maybe another wee statement, in a few days' time, just saying that they're all officially done.
I mean, I think you've got a good point there. I mean, I was speaking to someone the other day about it, and it does feel a bit harsh that, how can I put it, that this is an industry problem when it comes to football, when football players, break protocol rules. If these were plumbers and joiners, would the First Minister be stating, like, the plumbers and joiners better get their house in order? I don't think she would be. You know what I mean? It seems to me, if it was the clubs, fair enough. If the club was doing something, that led to this, but fair enough. But these are players in their spare time deciding to break the protocols that they've been given by the club. You know what I mean? So yeah, it does feel a bit overly political, which isn't so good. But so far, I've been quite impressed with how the club have handled it, and I hope that continues. Final point before we go tonight, Alex. There's been another issue, and I would say that the club maybe haven't handled that quite so well. As they've remained fairly silent, in fact, totally silent so far on the SFA report that came out last week on the historical child abuse. Now, I mean, I put a tweet out when the report came out. I had a quick skim over it when it came out, and the first thing I noticed, Rangers were mentioned more times than Celtic in the report, and I was just like, well, why is that? Why are we getting mentioned? And I kind of went to Twitter with that, sort of saying, I don't know if I'm quite happy with this. But then I ended up deleting the tweet. I thought, right, I'm not getting involved in this, because some of the replies I wasn't agreeing with, and I just thought, you know what, this is actually a human story. There's other things to worry about. But I do understand why some supporters aren't quite happy about some of the things in the report, and other clubs' involvement and all that kind of thing. However, the primary focus from the report, from a Rangers point of view, should be about Rangers. And the Rangers are named in the report. I've not read all the allegations and all that kind of stuff, but it's fairly damning stuff, I think, from what I've read in the media and stuff like that. You would have expected that, given every football club in the country knew this was coming. It's been delayed with 2.5 years. We knew this was coming. I would imagine that clubs, as I think John pointed out on Sunday night, when it comes to these kind of reports, the main stakeholders tend to get, a copy beforehand to allow them to prepare a statement. So to go 5-6 days or whatever it is and not say anything feels slightly disappointing, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's been a weekend, a kind of long weekend of waiting for statements from Rangers, and we've prided ourselves in the last year or so. The people who are now in charge of the club, are doing it right. They're behaving like Rangers. They've got that kind of dignity about them. They're playing their cards close to their chest, keeping their powder dry, etc. But this isn't a time for that. Even if they just tell us why they're not apologising, just make a statement, because we're talking about young footballers and all that. We're talking about the pressure, and I'm already feeling sorry for Nathan Patterson and what have you, because of the flack that's going to come their way if there was any kind of points deduction as a result of their actions. You think about what happened to these people. A young footballer, a guy. We hero worship Rangers just now. We're hero worshiping the likes of James Tavernier, because they've got something they're really good at, and they're doing it to a greater degree. To have your life completely turned upside down in the most horrible way, and in the way that it happened to the victims. I know they don't like being called victims; they should be called victims. But what I'm trying to say is, these people, to me, are real heroes. What they've done, coming forward and talking about this stuff, stuff that they've probably buried deep for a while. They've been victim blamed from the minute it happened by the perpetrators. It's a massive kind of damaging thing for them in their personal life, and for them to come forward and actually talk about this. To get this whole kind of thing out in the open, it's so brave, it's so heroic, that I think the least Rangers owe them. And I mean, this is a time where club colours just do not matter. Any victim of this kind of thing, for Rangers not to come out and and just say at least why we're not making a statement, at least why we're not apologising. I wouldn't go as far as to say insulting, but it's disappointing. It's very disappointing. We really need to look at the priorities here. Everybody, I think the thing that's not being said is we're all worried that making an apology, we think that's what's happening with other clubs, making an outright apology can then lead to legal action, and maybe a loss, damages haven't been paid. I don't care. Do it. Pay the damages. We've seen our club being liquidated, the company that owns our club being liquidated. This is a reason that we should never blink about having to pay money for this. That's the least you could do if there's any kind of fault found at Rangers that led to something like this. And I said the least we can do is come forward and just say something about it.
I think even just a statement saying they're reviewing the report, and we'll make an announcement, in the not too distant future. It seems a bit disappointing, and hopefully the club will come out with something soon, because I don't think it can continue. I saw Graham Spears bumping his gums about it, and it's just handing these people the ammunition that they need to sort of bash us a wee bit. But I think we'll call it a night there. Alex. So a big thanks to Alex and to Michiel, obviously, who joined us earlier on in the show, all the way from Belgium, give us an insight to tomorrow's opposition at Antwerp. So a big thanks to them. We'll try and get a show out on Friday for the Dundee United game, a preview show. We'll see how we get for the numbers of that. In the meantime, guys, get yourself over to the website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. And until next time, bye for now.